This week I'll be doing something a little bit different, installing a Linux-based Active Directory domain controller for my home network. For this purpose, I've chosen an appliance called Zentyal. Now, they do have a commercial edition, but they also have a developer edition or community. So for my purposes, the community edition will be perfect since it's a home network and I don't have a bunch of customers relying on me. Otherwise, I would look into using the business edition. Now, you have two different options when you install Zentyal. You can download an ISO image and boot that and build out the entire appliance that way. Or you can run an install on an existing Ubuntu 20.04 server. Now, I'm going to go ahead and SSH over to the Ubuntu server that I've set up. I've already installed all of the latest patches and updates, so it's fully up to date. All right, there we go. And I'll just use the installation command here from their website. Okay, first we download the installer script, and then we'll use our sudo command to change the script to be executable, and then we'll go ahead and run it. That is, if I can get my password typed correctly. Okay, we'll grab that install command and we'll run that here. We don't really need or want the graphical environment. That's just going to take up more resources on the server. So I've selected no on there. If you want to be able to open up the console and have the GUI available, it's up to you. I prefer not to have that. So this will take a few minutes. It's going to update all of the repos there, and it'll start downloading all the necessary dependencies and install their custom scripts to get the appliance up and running on my existing Ubuntu. Okay, it looks like the installer is already complete. Considering how much stuff there is, that didn't take too long. So let's try accessing that IP address on port 8443 and see if we can get to the server. Yeah, there it is. Now this is a freshly installed server, so it's using a self-signed certificate, which of course is not trusted by the browser. Now I'll log in with the username and password of my root account there. Actually, not my root account, my custom account. All right, now we need to select which packages we want to get installed. Now, I do want this to be a domain controller. And since it's going to be a domain controller, we also are going to need DNS there. We definitely want to have a certificate authority. The CA on here is actually pretty decent. It's got a nice interface where you can generate your SSL certificates with the necessary SAN entries, both DNS and IP. And it gives you the opportunity to download the files. And we'll go ahead and select DHCP server. We won't be getting that set up right away, but we'll go ahead and get it installed. Okay, so we've gotten to the point in the configuration wizard where it wants us to configure our interface. So I'm doing this as a standalone server. It only has a single NIC in there, so I set it as internal. Now, since I did set it as internal, I was a little confused here why it's prompting me for the configuration of the network for external interfaces. But when I look at the actual NIC name, it says ENS160, which is the name of the internal. So just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the IP address, gateway, and DNS. Put in Google's DNS server there, and Cloudflare is the other one. Okay, the type of server is going to be standalone. The host domain name, that's correct, lab.asbuild.dev. Okay, the installation is completed. Let's take a look at this dashboard. All right, we can see the first thing that it does is it checks to see if there's any updates available. And right now there are no updates. We're completely up to date. You can see the module status there. Different systems are running. We can click over into module status and look at them individually. We can check the box over on the right-hand side if we want to get them enabled. We can see DHCP is still turned off because I haven't configured any scopes or told that service to start up yet. Let's take a look here under General Configuration. We can see that our default port of 8443 is here. If we didn't like that, we could change that. But we'll go ahead and leave it as is. The date and time, that's all looking good for my environment here. And the NTP servers are set for just the ntp.org pool. That's good. Server edition. Now, if you were to buy a commercial version of this, you could enter the license key there to convert community into, or developer into the commercial edition. Under network, we can take a look at our interfaces. Of course, this gets more interesting when you have Zentyal set up as your gateway, but just using it as a standalone Active Directory domain controller for now. Now, domain name server resolver. Domain. Okay. Cache will be sent to the configured forwarders. Under your DNS settings, make sure that you click on this question mark up here so that you can see what's what. In particular, we want to make sure that we enable transparent DNS cache. So that tells the system to do all DNS queries right here to this DNS server if this is enabled. This allows caching of any results that have been retrieved from external DNS systems. That means if you're resolving something that's not on your local network, the next time that you go and resolve it, it'll be faster because your local DNS server has those cached results. Now for forwarders, if you were to set this up and put in a couple forwarders there, then what happens is your DNS queries go out to those forwarders first, and then if those forwarders aren't able to find the DNS entries, then it will revert back to your local DNS server here. Now this might be fine if you're using an invalid domain name like network.local or network.lab, something that's not a valid top-level domain that can be resolved out on the internet. In those cases, go ahead and set a forwarder if you're using some off-the-wall domain name for your local lab environment. Now, if you look at the domain name that I'm using here, it's lab.asbuild.dev. Well, asbuild.dev is a valid domain name out on the internet, right? So I have that registered with a registrar. DNS is out there working for external lookups. But here on my local network, if I were to set up forwarders, what would happen is when I put in a query from one of the systems that's using this DNS server, the query is going to go out to external DNS servers first, and it's going to see, oh, hey, asbuild.dev is going to be using these DNS servers, so let me try getting those records for you. Well, we don't really want that when we're using a local lab environment. So we can see my domain is lab.asbuild.dev. So I want everything that's lab.asbuild.dev to be resolved locally without even going out to the internet to look that up. So I'm not going to set up any forwarders here, and I am enabling transparent cache. That way I get the best of both worlds, and my queries will be faster for any local results that I need. Additionally, by having that transparent DNS cache enabled, I'll be caching any frequent queries that I'm doing out to the internet. So that's how we're going to get this set up here. So once we've got all that set, we can go ahead and click on the orange Save Changes up at the top, and we should be good. All right, now let's take a look at our SSL certificate. We can see here that it's a self-signed SSL certificate and it's not trusted. So let's go take care of that. Now, Zentyal does have a certificate authority server built into it. Now let's go ahead and get that initialized. For organization name, just put the domain name that we're working with here. That's lab.asbuild.dev. And the other fields there are all optional. Just go ahead and submit that. You can see that our certificate list is there. We'll save our changes. Okay, now we have our certificate authority initialized. So let's go ahead and download the CA key and certificate. There we go. There it is. Now, since this is our internal certificate authority, it's not trusted by default for all of the different web browsers. You get that kind of trust when you're using a public certificate authority. So in order to get the browser to trust your own internal corporate CA, you have to go into your browser settings and find the certificate management interface. And generally, you can just do a search for cert. Once you do find the certificates, you need to go into the authorities and then browse for the files that you've extracted. And you want to look for the .cer or the .crt files, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's .pem. So we'll go ahead and select our CRT file here because we don't need the key, we want the actual certificate. Now make sure that you put a check mark in all three of these because we do want to trust this CA for any kind of certificates that it issues. That way our browser will be happy when it views any sites that are using certificates from this server. Now, we have this services certificate here, and if we click edit on here and enable it, what's going to happen is the certificate authority will see what the fully qualified domain name is, and it'll issue a certificate for that. We can see here that that common name is just Zentyal. It's not the actual FQDN. So let's go ahead and get that changed. We want this to be for the server that we're working with. So the fully qualified domain name on that is dc.lab.asbuild.dev. Whenever you're issuing SSL certificates, you want to make sure that that common name matches the FQDN of the server that you're working with. And once you've issued that certificate, make sure you save your changes. Alrighty. Can take a look here. Yep. Okay, so one of the things that I missed there was the length of the SSL certificate. It looks like Zentyal is configured to do a default of a 10-year SSL certificate, which, well, that hasn't been acceptable for several years now. So I'm going to go ahead and change the days to expire to 824. Now, even though 825 is what the previous acceptable length was, I like doing it a day shorter. And then for the subject alternative names, I want to make sure that I have my fully qualified domain name there for the DNS entry, and I also go ahead and put in the IP address. There we go. And now that I've issued that new certificate, I want to enable Zentyal Web Admin, which matches that FQDN of the certificate that I just created. So now I have a valid certificate for 824 days that matches the FQDN of our Zentyal server. There we go. Much better. All right, so we'll open up a new tab here and see whether or not the browser is happy. It may not be. Nope, not quite yet. Let's take a look at the certificate and see what's happening. Oh yeah, so it's still using the previous certificate. In cases like this, the server is still issuing or serving up that previous certificate. It seems like the services did not restart themselves properly here. So I'm just going to go ahead and reboot my appliance. Okay, the reboot is complete, so let's take a look here. We'll try it again. https dc.lab.asbuild.dev, port 8443, and look at that, we've got our lovely little lock there. Let's take a look at our certificate. Okay, we see we have our common name, the organization, and that's the proper expiration date there. And if we look at the details, we can see our certificate authority as the root there, and then our SSL. So now I can go ahead and log back in. And I don't need to save the password there, so we'll just click Never on that. All right, well, let's go take a look at our domain. So we're set up as a domain controller. Our NetBIOS name is lab. Server description, I like to make this a little more friendly. So let's go ahead and get that changed to lab domain controller. Okay, now we got to hit change, and of course we need to hit that nice orange button in the top right corner for save changes. But I'll do that in a few minutes. Zentyal does allow you to make multiple changes here, so as long as you're comfortable making multiple changes, which should be fine on a fresh server installation right here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a few user accounts here in Active Directory. Now I'm going to use a username here, Blab, which is actually my first initial, and then for last name I'm just putting Lab. There we go, and I added myself to the domain admins group, so let's make sure. Yep, there I am. Great. Now groups, we don't have any extra groups here, so let's go ahead and create some. We'll just use a standard security group. We're not really dealing with email here. And we'll make a group for our IT people. Description and hit add. And we need to click back onto the folder so that we can highlight that green button for the plus. I'll create a group for the developers. All right, and we'll do another one. This will be for our Virtual Center admins. We don't have Virtual Center set up for this new lab environment yet. That will be in an upcoming video. All right, let's do another group for storage admin. No? Okay, users. We have just Blab and guest, so let's add another one here. Call this one dev user 1. Okay, and let's make sure that we select the group that we want to put that user in. Great. Let's go ahead and create another user here. This one will be our Virtual Center administrator. We'll call him VC admin. Give them a password. Let's retype that, and let's put that person in the VC admins group. Great. All right, we'll go ahead and get our changes saved here. We don't want to have to redo any of these if anything were to happen. Okay, great. Okay, that wraps up my first video on Zentyal. I now have a Linux-based domain controller, some Active Directory test groups, Active Directory users, a DNS server for my lab network, a certificate authority with a graphical interface. In the next video of this series, I'll be joining a Windows 11 Pro machine to the domain. That'll allow me to use nicer utilities for managing users, groups, and group policies. Thanks, have a great day.